so well trained. You must have all went to school here. I'm Dee Hankins. I'm the director here. I welcome you all. I just have two things quick before we get started. I really wanted to extend my gratitude to the candidates for agreeing to do this tonight. I know it's clearly a big evening, and so thank you guys so much for coming. And then the library intends to close its doors at 8 p.m. So fair warning, we do have a brief moment at the end where you'll speak to the candidates, but at 8 p.m. we'd like everybody out of the building so that we can safely close our doors. So, and that's it, and with that I'm going to turn it over to one of our staff here, Tara Lighthorn.
Hi, I'd like to welcome you all, and I have to tell you how really excited I am about this. This to me it shows that we are a town that really are committed to being together and finding out about things within our town, and the reason that I know that is because over 70 different questions were submitted to the library. And of those questions, they came from 30 different sources. So that means that a lot of people in this community really do want some information about what's going on in our community. This shows me a lot, and it really warms my heart to know that. Luckily, some themes emerged. We're not going to have all 70 questions. So there seem to be a lot of similar interests. And so questions have been chosen within those areas. So for this reason, the committee will not be attaching names to any questions asked tonight. And for that reason, we have someone to read all the questions. That person is Mrs. Grace Flora. So I'm sure most of you know her, or at least those of you who went to school here. And she will be our moderator for the evening. She will be reading the questions for the candidates. I will be timing them. They will have about 2 minutes for each question. All right? So I hope you enjoy the evening and our wonderful audience. And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Flora.
All right, all three candidates received a question list yesterday afternoon to give them an opportunity to prepare for tonight's event. To offer each candidate an opportunity to answer first, second, and last, questions will be asked on a rotating basis, beginning with Mrs. Reese, whose name was chosen out of a hat right before we got started. Candidates will be timed. If they exceed their time, I will cut them off. Tara will let them know with cards. She'll hold up a card to let them know.
I told you I was going to have to take you out.
Yep. Candidates will not have an opportunity for rebuttal, and no follow-up questions will be asked this evening. Additionally, we ask that those in attendance respect the rules for the meeting. There will be no talking or crowd engagement during the questioning portion. And we ask you to turn off your cell phones now. Cell phones and other devices. We don't want any interruptions. Okay. We will record the answers this evening and make the recording available on our website tomorrow. At the conclusion of the candidates' questions and answers, there will be a brief opportunity to approach the candidates and speak with them. The first question goes to Mrs. Reese, and it has two parts. And Mrs. Reese will answer, and then each other candidate will have a chance to respond to it. What attributes and behaviors are essential for a mayor, and what experiences or skills have prepared you to be the mayor of New Holstein?
Thank you. I'm going to start out with past experiences and skills. When I was first elected as mayor, I brought along my experience of past employment of 38 years in a hospital laboratory and 25 years of developing and running the hardware store. Those years were great lessons in efficiency, evaluation, and working with co-workers and customers. I plan on using those past lessons for continuing on in the next 2 years. But when I came to the words attributes and behaviors, I had a hard time trying to find the words what I really wanted to say. Well, I went back and started thinking about our family scouting days, and I came across the following words that I must say it says it all. So I'm going to say the Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and relevant. If any leader lives by these rules, the same ones we wanted our children to live by, we will have a good leader.
Okay, then it would be, Mr. Jacobson is next to respond to that same question.
To me, you need to have a level head and be a good communicator to be a leader. And with the mayor, you need to be able to get the word out of what projects are being worked on and how things are progressing. What gives me good experience going into it is my military career, 25 years in the Air Force, and I've run pharmacies with large staffs, multiple locations, huge workload, multiple missions to be done at a time, and all that gives me the experience to run the city hall and the city, because there's multiple items, projects, progressions going on at any given time. So that's why I feel like I would make a good mayor, and that's what I feel you need to have to be a good leader.
Okay, Mr.
We
Hebel?
are asking that you speak just a little bit louder. People are having trouble in the back.
Okay, Mr. Hebel.
Holy cow. I've never seen this many people in the library. I've been in the library very often, but holy cow. A mayor needs to be a leader, articulate, problem solver, solution oriented. You listen to a lot of problems, and there's always two sides of those problems, two sides of those issues. So I think what I've described as a police officer. I was a police officer for 27 years for New Holstein, 29 years total. I was on the Board of Education for 12 years, served as president, vice president, clerk, deputy clerk. I think I have the desire, the knowledge, the inner workings of how City Hall works, how the city departments work. So I think I have the necessary skills to be the next mayor.
Okay. So the next question relates to your candidacy. Why are you running for mayor, and what would you say is New Holstein's current identity, and what is your vision for our community? Unfortunately, we start with Mr. Hebel again.
I'm mad. I don't know what my tax dollars are being used for anymore. I came here in 1992, started working, and then I moved here in 94. And New Holstein was tops in everything. Population, employment, just things to do, activities, businesses. We had it all. I started in Kiel, and I was envious of New Holstein, ultimately came here. But while I was in Kiel, New Holstein and Kiel were in the running for Sargento, and we know what happened there. And I moved here, and I saw that great place to raise a family. The city was moving in the positive direction, and as time has worn on, I don't know what my tax dollars are for. Simple things like brush pickup was every week. Now it's maybe once a month. Heavy refuse was twice a year. Now it's once a year, and we got to take it down there. I just don't know what's going on. The communication within City Hall to the public is non-existent. I give my opponents all the credit in the world for running. It takes a lot to run. But we have had the same alder members year in and year out. Every once in a while we get a new one, and we start to think that change is going to be change, but change isn't change if there isn't change. And we've got aldermen that have been on way too long. 30 years is unacceptable. We need to start making some changes from the top down.
Okay. Next question will go to Mr. Jacobson. Many options have been discussed.
With Grace.
No, Grace, he has to do the same question.
Oh, never mind. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I was going on to the next question already.
You want to get home early.
I do. Okay, continue with that question.
All right. New Holstein is my hometown. I graduated from New Holstein High School in 1979, and I love my town. I was in the Air Force for 25 years, like I said. When I retired, I was living down in Tampa. I could have stayed down in Florida, but I wanted to come back to my hometown. My parents are still here, so I wanted to come help them. As I've been here now for going on 13 years, I saw an opportunity to give back to my hometown, and that's why that I've chosen to run for mayor. The current identity of New Holstein is, who knows? We don't have an identity. People call it a retirement community. Some people call it a bedroom community. At the present time, it's kind of neither. And I would like to see us get back to an identity, to identify ourselves. If we wish to be a retirement community, there are industry that can come in for that. Then you develop a retirement community. But where I see New Holstein going is to get industry and business back into town, to give our current businesses the opportunities to grow, encourage them to grow, give them the opportunities to grow. If they have ideas to grow, for City Hall and city government to work with them to find the way to grow. And that's where my vision for New Holstein is. And it's going to take a lot, but we can get there.
Okay, Mrs. Reese, would you respond to that question, please?
Sure. I am running also because this is my hometown. I wanted to prosper as I did for our hardware store prospering. I believe in my heart that as mayor, I am the best candidate because I bring the knowledge and experience that I've gathered over the years, like I spoke before, and I can help the city move forward because I have some of the knowledge that is already existing. When I started in 2008, the city was in a sad state. Tecumseh and Hoist were closing, and the housing market was at its all-time low. Things really had to come around since then because it was already tanked. Our community is growing. There are only a few lots in the Parkview subdivision, and you gotta imagine that when you come down from ground level, it takes a long time to start to recover because everybody was in that funky mood. And we will be looking for a new area to grow the community to meet the workforce housing needs that are impacting our county. My continued goal as mayor is to create a community that will attract new families with me while maintaining the small town atmosphere.
Okay, yep, all right. Now we move on to the next question. And this one will go to Mr. Jacobson. Many options have been discussed and opinions and ideas expressed regarding the Tecumseh property. Being as specific as possible, including timelines or sub-goals, please share with us your vision for this property.
The one thing with the Tecumseh property, since it's all started, is we seem to make a decision on it and then change. And then make a decision on it and then change what we're going to do with it. Well, we need to make a decision on what's going to happen with Tecumseh. Tecumseh needs to be torn down. We need to work in that process to get that land cleared so then we can have it for bringing new industry in. A timeline on it would be real tough from my seat because there are steps that need to be gone through that have been started, but I don't know the full extent of how fast that those will happen. But we need to push through and get the building down, get the area ready for new industry to come in. As it sits, it's good for nothing. The building isn't good. The furnace, the heat in it, it's just not usable anymore. So it needs to come down, and we just go with that decision, get it done, and move on so that you can go to the next step in the process.
Okay. Mrs. Reese.
Okay, as you all know, Tecumseh is a 40-acre opportunity for the city of New Holstein. We have been working with it, and it hasn't been an easy or a quick road. The city is working with the county, the state, the federal, and private entities to demolish the building, which will take place in 2021, to get this property developed and put back on the tax roll. We have already approached developers and had some interest from them, but only when the building is torn down. The city has created an ER-TID over the property for development. It's in place right now. This will assist in cleaning up the contamination and getting the site shovel ready. The city is working on completing a market feasibility study. It's in process right now, which will provide us with a current picture of what type of development will work in our community.
Okay. Mr. Hebel.
How many people work there that are in the room? When's the last time you've been in there? 15 years? It needs to be torn down. It is a public health safety issue. Police department members had to go in there on a regular basis because things were going on inside. I'm retired, but the guys have now been warned that they can't go in there anymore because there's so much mold. It is in such disrepair, just so terrible. Kids are getting in there. If you go by, there's windows broken on a regular basis. Somebody's gonna get hurt in there. The city needs to take it down, and then we go from there. There's talk about this German heritage site. There's no way I'm gonna see that in my lifetime. Who's gonna wanna go down in that area? Schwartz's, Repke's, they developed a history. That's why people know where they are. Nobody knows. The only reason they know about it is because it was Tecumseh. There's nothing down there to bring people down. So it's not gonna be industry. If it is, it's gonna be a spot that somebody can maybe expand their business or use the rail system. But right now, how many studies are we gonna do? Yeah, there's probably somebody out there looking at it, but the city doesn't know that. You know, we need to find out, why is it we always have to wait until something like this starts to happen when we start getting news about it? The city needs to be more transparent on what's going on in the city, put it on Facebook, put it in the media. The city's Facebook page alone, it's still got officers that have been retired 10 years ago on it.
All right, we'll move on to the next question then. This deals with the Aquatic Center. Please share with us your vision for the Aquatic Center. And start with Mr. Hebel. Repeating the order.
The Aquatic Center, I started looking into it, and the last 8 years, it's been in a deficit of over $445,000, an average of $55,670. Why are we just hearing about it now? Why hasn't this been something that's been put out there? When I would ask alder members, about the deficit, they would tell me, "Wow, when you build something like that, you have to just expect a deficit." Yeah, maybe a couple grand, but $50,000? Are you kidding me? My wife and I, we split the bills up. She pays the water bill. Leaky faucet in the back was leaking. She had to pay for it. She got on my case several times. I had to call dinner over, come change the spigot. Why haven't we changed that spigot yet? One thing, by posting this on my Facebook, it's forced a dialogue. People are starting to talk about it. Well, if they understand that we have issues down there, it's going to force people to start to come up with solutions. I don't have the answers, but somebody out there may need to lower the fees, offer reduced discounts for our neighboring cities, Kiel and Chilton, maybe try to offer some adult type activities, but we have to do something, because $50,000 are road projects. Those are major projects that can be done in the city. $445,000, that's a lot of money. And Why hasn't it been addressed before?
Okay, Mr. Jacobson?
With the aquatic center, if you look at communities around us, they don't have anything equivalent to our aquatic center. Plymouth is the closest that you can go to find something equivalent. Why is it running at such a large deficit? I don't know. What you're going to have to look at is managing it, how it's marketed. Is it getting marketed out to communities so that they can see what we have here, so that they can see to come in? Are we overcharging, undercharging for admission? Those are items that need to be looked at, need to be reevaluated, and it's a great area for young families. If we're looking for young families to come in, it can be an attractor for young families. It gives a young family something to do. Now, if we overprice it, well, then the young family has nothing to do because it costs too much to go in. So we've got to look at all those areas. We've got to figure out why we're running at such a deficit, and look at where we can make up the deficit, where we can bring it back to a little bit more manageable. It's a good thing for the city to have. Will it ever make money? No. Aquatic centers, pools will not make money for a city. It's just the way it is. Does it need to run at $50,000 a year on the average debt? No. We need to do something about that, and that's one of the areas that will be evaluated.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reese?
Okay, yes, the community of 16 citizens evaluated the old swimming pool when we were ready. When they looked at it, it had cracks in, and they all arose to the situation that if the city of New Holstein wanted a swimming pool, they will need to build a new one. They made a big evaluation, and the current aquatic center is what they ended up with. And yes, it is running in a deficit, and like a lot of things, it is valued to the citizens, and sometimes taxpayers have to go for something that you need or want. The facility is now 10 years old, and it requires maintenance, just as all of our other facilities do. And it's, of course, always on the taxpayer dollars, because that's what the city is all about. The aquatic center is an attraction, like both of my counterparts here talked about it. It's for our residents and visitors, and how we can do it to make it zero, is almost nil, because, as they said, it was designed, and those forefathers realized it was going to be in a negative value. The aquatic center is an attraction for our residents and the visitors, and we're hoping it can keep it at a minimum, and we're excited. Going forward, our new director is trying to do a little reorganization and bring this year as a better value.
Thank you. Okay, next question deals with the airport. Please share with us your vision for the airport, and we'll start with Mayor Reese.
Okay, New Holstein Airport. It is the only airport in Calumet County. We are supported by the federal and state aeronautic entities. That means that they put a big chunk of money into us having this airport in our city. There has been a constant increase in activities over the years. The Super Cubs group of, I'm sure many of you know, you hear them buzzing around our city, they bring in approximately 60 planes when it comes close to EAA Day, when we have our airport day. And of course, they supply free rides to our younger, under 18-year-olds at no cost. So that's one asset, but you know what, there's also other things going on. In the fall, we have a fly-in, drive-in, and that is being conducted by our newly established New Holstein EAA chapter, which was defunct after a while. And this year, there is a new event coming in, it's called Powered Parachute. I don't quite know what it's all about, but they booked a weekend in August. And you may also have seen it, crop dusters around the city, they use our airport, and during the summertime, of course, and the National Guard with their helicopters are doing their exercises and using our airport for that. So really, the airport is doing well, and it is actually self-sustaining.
Thank you. Mr. Hebel?
Another attraction. We got a pool, we got an airport. The airports around the area are owned by the county. Sheboygan County Airport, Manitowoc County Airport, Fond du Lac County Airport. We'd probably be better off trying to develop that area than trying to develop the Tecumseh area. We need to reach out to EAA, and we're a hop, skip, and a jump from them. I mean, it's busy over there. They can't use our facility. We should be reaching out to EAA. We should be reaching out to aeronautical, pilot, flying magazines, trying to somehow sell our airport for maybe needs that they have. I'd like to contact the Appleton International Airport and see if they've got any businesses that need to expand. They've got a lot of business out there with smaller jets and things like that. But to have another attraction, the coolest thing about it is that apparently I saw on Lambo 1265 that the sportscasters that did the Ice Bowl had to land the plane at New Holstein International Airport because the door wasn't closed properly, and one of the big guys was holding on to Frank Gifford so he wouldn't fall out. That's pretty cool, but it doesn't get us anything.
Okay, and Mr. Jacobson about the airport.
The airport has been there since I came to town. It was developed most likely for ARPS, which became AmeriQuip, MB, Tecumseh, so that their corporate presidents can fly in and out, is probably where it started. So New Holstein has an airport. It's a good thing as we try to attract businesses in, especially if we are get in a large business that has corporate headquarters elsewhere. It is large enough for a small jet to land on. And so it's a good attraction. It's an asset as we try to attract businesses in, especially large businesses. And as Mayor Reed said, we've got federal and state aviation money coming in. It's not costing us more than very minimal to have it there. And why you wouldn't want to get rid of it. It needs to stay. Can we find other uses for it? Yes, probably. There probably can be other things that can be brought in. But it is a good asset that the city has.
Well said. Okay, the next area is the budget. The budget is always an area of concern for taxpayers. About 15% of the questions submitted referenced the finances of the city. Some key topics emerged. A few things are known. The city has levy limit constraints. There was a referendum asking to increase the levy. So the first budget question goes to Mr. Hebel. What are your thoughts on the levy? As in, do you think it should decline, remain the same, or increase? And if so, what are your specific ideas to accomplish your choice?
I didn't know what the tax levy was until I was on the school board, so there's probably a lot of you that don't understand what it is. But what it is it's the taxes that are collected and used for municipal operations. So your repairs, your services. So several years ago, the governor and the legislature passed a law that you couldn't raise the tax levy unless your value of your city went up due to construction or other remodeling, construction, new construction, things like that. So that's the only way it's gonna go up. If there's no new construction, nothing like that, then it's zero, there's a zero increase. So, you're left with a referendum which allows all of you to get involved in the decision on whether or not to raise taxes. And I don't think that the number of taxes should ever go up for additional personnel. The only time I think it should be utilized is if it's for a quality of life type of situation, or if it's gonna positively move development. Whether it's TIF districts, just it's gonna increase the probability that the city value is gonna go up. So people are gonna ask, well, how are you gonna keep it the same? Well, it came from the police department, so everybody's thinking, is it gonna be off limits? Are they gonna have a free pass? No, you can move the personnel in the police department. The police chief right now works Monday through Friday driving a desk. New Holstein isn't big enough for that. He can work 6 on 3 off like the rest of the troops. Your police captain works day shift. So when I was working days, the chief and I supervised each other. Didn't make any sense.
Time.
So you can adjust some personnel to alleviate some things.
Okay. Mr. Jacobson, you're next.
With the tax levy, it shouldn't go up due to zero growth. If you're gonna advertise that you need more money and you're gonna say, well, the city's at zero growth, we need personnel, I can't support that. You need to look at what's going on with the city. Why is there zero growth? How can you change it around? How can you do something different? For me, the tax levy should stay the same, and we need to find other ways to build our tax base. So it's not always a simple answer, and it might come down to, when I was in the military, we were constantly told, okay, military's being cut this year, we're losing people, you gotta do more with less. Sometimes you have to do more with less. You have to figure it out. Tax monies don't go as far as they used to. And you can either continue raising them, and people get upset and leave town because the mill rate is too high, or you can figure out and start thinking out of the box how to change things. You're not doing something right if you're not growing. If you're going at 0% growth, or maybe even negative growth, you got to do something different. You can't stay status quo. So as far as the referendum and the tax levy increase, it shouldn't be increased, and we need to change so we can get a better tax base.
Thank you. Mrs. Reese.
Okay, some of my information is similar to theirs. For a number of years now, the levy limit has been in place, and this state law has put a burden on the cities across Wisconsin. I hear that whenever I go to conferences. In fact, they're trying to do something about it because it put a lot of small cities like us in a stagnant place. And you get to a point you can't cut anymore. So there are times when the standard of living keeps growing, the cost of living keeps growing, and we're still at one level. And sooner or later, things are gonna give. But so when Tecumseh property was here, there was a lot of usage of water and sewer and electricity. And that really increased our ability to run the utility department and for the tax base on what it was doing. So we had 40 acres there of being not utilized and bringing in the tax base up a little bit. I guess the city has been diligent with their efficiency of running the cities and cutting services. And one of the things that, we were trying to be efficient, but one of the things that was referred to earlier was having pickup of brush once a month. Well, something's gotta give. So if we don't have enough taxes to cover everything, that might be one thing. Services might be cut. And the city, of course, like I said, was quite diligent, and we're getting to a point that we're gonna have to look stronger at different things. But I guess in order to alleviate temporarily, I guess my goal is to do an aggressive marking when it comes next year or close to that time, to get some marketers in and develop that former Tecumseh property to increase the tax base. And that should alleviate some of our running for a temporary time until maybe the city government can stop taxing us.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hebel, same question.
I answered it first.
Oh, you did, never mind. I went on to the next one already. Okay, and this one is also on finances. Okay, so Mr. Hebel, what are your thoughts on utilizing TIF developments and TIF incentives?
I don't want to hog, but I started the last one.
Oh, yes, you did. Sorry, Mr. I have a J and I'm thinking Jeff. Mr. Jacobson, TIF developments and TIF incentives.
With the TIF areas, we can use those as incentives for new businesses. You need to look at the potential of growth, the size of the business that's looking at coming in, and match your incentive to them. If it's someplace that some business that's coming in that's going to offer, it's going to employ two people, we want to give them a good incentive to come here, and give them if it's a tax break, if it's selling the TIF property to them at a very reasonable price, if it's running the power and sewer into it. We can match that up to businesses. We've got to do something to encourage businesses to come in. We have to at least match our bordering towns of Chilton and Kiel, because as it is right now, they're taking the businesses. They're trying to take our businesses. I've talked to business owners that have been offered by both Kiel and Chilton to move their business there. Luckily, they haven't at this point, but we have to be aware that we need to give these businesses incentive to come here. And using the TIF and using tax incentives, however we can do it, we need to figure it out. We need to lay it on the line for them. Sometimes you have to spend a little money to make money, but you don't get, at the same time, you don't give away the store. You can't give it all away for someone to come in.
Thank you. Okay, same question on the TIF developments, Mrs. Reese.
Okay, I just got a simple sentence. The TIP program is a great opportunity, and the city has used it, and it's an opportunity for the communities for our size to assist current business, just as we had used it to assist Medco, and to attract new business for development. Sort of plain and simple. If you've got the ability and some of the finance to be able to use it, and for companies, it works.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of the most effective tools cities have to spur development. You got TIF and you got TIG. Tax incremental district is like a geographic area, the area you're going to designate to do this. The TIF is the money that comes in. New Holstein stinks at using the TIF districts. Kiel will take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. We've got some solid businesses up in our TIF district in the northwest part of the city. One sells flowers and vegetables, the other provides dinners for weddings. And these people, when I was a cop, 90 to 95% of the time I was stopped and asked directions for Altona or Honeymoon Acres. These guys are expanding their businesses on a regular basis, but when they want to expand and go to the city makes them beat their heads against the wall, jump through hoops in order to do so. I don't know why anybody would want to start a business in this city when they have to deal with stuff like that. These are established businesses that do not need New Holstein to sustain their business. What they're doing is huge. both of them give back to this community like you wouldn't believe. Honeymoon Acres puts all the flowers in all the planters. Anybody know that? City doesn't publicize it. Absolutely. We need to be looking out for our businesses.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next section, you're going to get 3 minutes per candidate to answer. In addition, I'll stand up. In addition to a lot of budget questions, business was often cited in the questions. Many people wanted to know about current relationships, bringing new business, priorities for business, etc. Because your answers to this may answer some of the periphery questions, each candidate will have an additional minute then. Ultimately, we would like to know, and Mrs. Reese will go first, what do you see as the role of local government in business?
Okay, concerning businesses, there are different groups in New Holstein who are working with business. We have the Chamber of Commerce, who is strongly working as a group promoting local businesses. And we also have the New Holstein Economic Development, who spearheaded the Beer-Vicker plan for the city way back at the beginning of our work with the Tecumseh property. They are independent of the city. So when we talk about the city has its committee called the Community Development Authority. And that branch has been instrumental in working with the state and federal entities in acquiring grants and studies. We continue as a city working with different businesses, and one of the things that we had done was we helped a business, for example, vacating one of the streets and then closing off Ford Drive in order for the expansion of that business. And and it came forward, and there were questions, and it was a huge project because you just don't close down a street for a minor thing. We are expecting good things from him, and I'm sure that it will happen.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hebel.
It's crucial for the city, for the success of the city and the city needs to be advocates for not only our citizens, but our businesses. Businesses need to be able to communicate with the city if they're in need of maybe financial assistance or infrastructure assistance. But I've talked to people, to businesses, and one of the things that I've promised is that within the first 100 days, I intend to visit every single business, big and small, to see what the city's doing good and what's not doing good, what we can do to help them. I've had friends that have tried to open businesses up in New Holstein. They go into City Hall and leave with more questions than answers. They find a parcel of land outside the county, and the county comes down and fills out the paperwork. We need to be open arms. What can I do for you? Take them down to the utilities. Hey, what do we need to do to set this up? It's sad. Permits run out because the building inspector can't get around to checking it out. That's when we need to reach out to Kiel and Chilton and see if we can combine and get one full-time building inspector so that people aren't waiting weeks. They've got contractors coming in. They can't work because the guy hasn't come in to inspect it. He says take pictures. That's not right. What if it's wrong? Who's paying the bill if it's wrong? City needs to be more open arms and more user-friendly when it comes to the citizens and the businesses of this community.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobson.
The local government needs to feel the pulse, know the pulse of their businesses. The businesses are what attracts people into the community. The businesses have their taxes that they pay. The local government needs to listen to them, needs to work with them. If there's a project that the city's doing and it directly affects a business or a few businesses, ask the business owner's opinion on it. because they know what's going on, they know what is happening, they know what's driving their income. They'll have some good ideas. Not saying that every idea is always right, but at least they're going to feel that they had a say in it. And we need to make sure that we nurture them so that they can continue their business in town, not looking to leave. That if they're in a situation, they can expand. We need to set it up so that they feel friendly coming into City Hall, that, okay, I need to do this, but I don't know how. Guess what? City Hall is supposed to be the experts on it, or at least know where to find the information. The City Hall, the city employees need to be helping these businesses so they can expand, they can continue doing business.
Thank you. Okay, as many of you know, there is currently a housing demand facing Calumet County. Please offer specifics as to how you believe a mayor can impact this area, starting with Mr. Hebel.
Well, if we focus on a lot of the earlier issues, views, people are going to want to come here and live, work, and play, but we don't really have anywhere to develop affordable housing. We've got the subdivisions over by the park and the Mountaineer subdivisions. Well, I can't afford to build there. The city needs to find some areas that we can develop for more affordable housing, and I think the housing market right now is great. I had a rental that I didn't even have on the market, and somebody approached me and asked if they wanted to buy it. Sold it. I just think that once we get our priorities in order as a city, then we can work on the affordable housing issue.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobson.
This was a question when I looked at it, I kind of went, I'm not sure on this. Well, using TIF areas, setting up areas that people can afford to get the lots. Those are areas that our government can help. Mayor sells impact on it. We lead that government, so I guess that would be the impact. As Jeff said, focus on areas that we need to improve and that will make the town a better place to come live. So on this one, I really did go scratch my head, tried to figure this one out. I'll learn as I go, because I'm still trying to figure this one out.
Thank you. Mrs. Reese.
Okay, this is a tough one. I gotta agree with Mike. I guess as for a mayor, I think I could impact this housing demand situation by being supportive of the new development as it presents itself to the plan committee and through TIF incentives. Like the new apartments on the Kennedy Drive, that was a TIF incentive, and we do have an apartments up there. And then actually continue to look for new opportunities, like was also mentioned up here. The opportunities right now is if we get this 40 acres of Tecumseh developed, when the buildings go down, if we get the right developers, maybe that's the place to go. And yes, has been contaminated, but you know what, it can be fixed. So it's open to anything. So that might be one of the opportunities going down, is 40 acres, it's wide open.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. The mayor works with a variety of people, department heads, common council, other government entities, constituents, and so on. You've described your vision for the community. If elected to the position of mayor, how do you see your role in connecting with the council and community to achieve the implementation of your vision in the next 2 years? And we'll start with Mr. Jacobson.
With that one, with my vision and working with the city council and the community, the city council needs someone to lead it. Needs someone to get a fire lit underneath them so that they understand that business status quo is not what's working. It's not working. And it's going to be a matter of trying to work with the council that has been there to show here's the direction that I'd like to see the city go, and having it down on the facts as to why we should do this so that they can see where my vision is, and then work with them and talk with them and whatever it takes with them to lead it down that way.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hebel.
Communicate, communicate, communicate. I've worked with the entire council on various issues, worked with some of them on the school board. Fortunately, there's gonna be some turnover. There's several new candidates for aldermen. There needs to be some turnover. Again, 30 years is too long for someone to be on the council. I'd be embarrassed if I was on that long in the direction that this city's gone. What I'd like to do is open up a dialogue with our neighbors to the north and the south and see if we can't come up with solutions to, they have the same levy limits that we have. They have the same issues that we have. They're a lot more successful. I've reached out to elected officials in both, spoke to the city administrator in Kiel today, and he said they're rooting for us. They're rooting for us because if we're successful, they're going to continue to be successful. But we need to be able to reach out, and our public service right now is approaching $1 million a year. We got to be able to look at ideas, ways to possibly combine services, whether it's police, our fire issues. We've got to come up with solutions that nobody wanted to touch before. I'll kind of be a bull in a china shop if elected. So if you want that, vote for me. If not, don't vote for me.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question where each candidate will be given 3 minutes to answer. Several questions submitted referenced city government. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I miss?
Someone didn't answer the
Oh,
question.
sorry about that. Go ahead. I missed you. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay. I guess when I'm, my role, as mayor is actually to be the igniter of working together with our council, in the direction of development. And then, of course, my whole theme of this is development, and that's the only place we can go is up to develop things. And when we start going lateral, it's fine. We work with our communities, we work with our Calumet County and the neighboring areas for intergovernmental things, but I still have to go back on my thing of being developing within and then reaching out to the exteriors.
Thank you. Okay, so we were talking about this next section having 3 minutes to answer. And a lot of the questions reference city government, some premised on change, some on no change. So taking into consideration the following departments: general city, public works, police, fire, utilities, and library, and try to answer both parts. So we're going to start with Mrs. Reese on this one. What are your impressions of how city departments are currently performing? And do you currently have any specific goals in mind for any of the departments? Okay.
Okay, as far as departments is, a number of years I had started some working with our department heads. I receive constant feedback. I have individual department manager meetings to discuss situations when issues arise. We also have monthly departmental meetings for all the managers to share their department projects, especially when they affect the other departments. Having said that, I feel that all the departments are performing well and at their capacity. The present goals for the departments are the library will be doing a remodel here of the restrooms. Our public works will be tackling the ash board threat and removing ash trees. And there will be a fiber optic upgrade for the city and the utility buildings.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hebel.
City Hall's dysfunctional when it comes to department heads. I got to see it firsthand. The mayor is the one that has to be the one that deals with all the department heads and report back to the council, because the council has about maybe 2 hours a month of contact with department heads during a few meetings. That's not enough. So the department heads could basically tell the council whatever they want to hear or whatever they want them to hear. And the mayor needs to be the one that digs deep, goes in and finds out what's really going on. And working for New Holstein, the city was probably the worst employer I ever worked for. Working for the city residents of New Holstein was probably the best job I ever had. Amazing, amazing people in New Holstein. Do anything for you, but the city needs some help. We need to define our vision, and I don't think there's a vision that everyone would agree on when you go to City Hall and talk to the department heads. The one that I think that functions the best would be the city utilities. Utilities, they got their act together. Another thing, you call City Hall and you get the utility side, somebody answers your phone call, gets you an answer or contacts you with an answer. You call the City Hall side, you get an automated system where you gotta leave a message and you might get called back. We're not busy enough, we're not big enough for that. Answer the phone.
Okay, Mr. Jacobson.
For me, the general city, the city hall needs to be more accommodating. It needs to be changed into a customer service base. The folks in City Hall need to understand that all the citizens that come up there to speak with them, two things. They're looking for an expert with answers or someone that can direct them for the right answers. And two, that person that just came up asking that is actually your boss. You are a public servant, whether you're hired, appointed, elected, you're working in the government. You are a public servant. That public is your boss. And they need to understand that. And that is the role, the model that I will be pushing and driving when I'm elected, is that City Hall understands that they need to do customer service and do customer service well. Another place that I see that I would like to see expanded is the police department. They need to be a little more out in the community. And when I say that, I don't mean the squad officers. I don't mean, the ones that are out there every day. They know their community. I'm talking, we need to get the police chief, the captain, they need to be a little more community involved with their office. They need to, I would like to see a committee, or not as so much a committee, but just a meeting set up with the bar owners and the police department. Because the police department are doing a very, very important job. They're keeping our city safe. But the bar owners are doing a legal job. That is their livelihood. But if the two of them would work together to make the town safe, they would both understand each other better. But that working together and understanding each other isn't out there with them. And that's another place that I would look to expand on community involvement from the city.
Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. moving along with, we received a lot of questions that were asked by just one person and didn't necessarily fit into the repeating themes. Now, you received a list of all those questions. Starting with Mr. Hebel, is there any one question you'd like to address or answer directly here? If so, please state the question as well.
The questions to me were more of a personal attack on individuals or entities, so I'm not going to entertain it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jacobson?
Yeah, I was in the same mindset. There wasn't many that I wish to answer. It seemed to be the ones that were asked separately were more of attacking on an individual.
Okay. Mrs. Reese?
I have something I'll bring up. It wasn't quite a question on there, but it's talked about a lot, and I'm sure you can probably hit a soft spot when you hear it, is the condition of some citizens' buildings in town. The city has heard many concerns of the conditions of different buildings, and we are concerned as well as you, because it is a reflection on everybody. One thing that we have to keep in vision is that those buildings and that property is private owned, and we are only allowed to do so much and still be, in legally doing it. We have, in the past, I guess there was one building in town, and it was before my time, but the city forefathers had decided to drop the building because it was in such disarray, and they got a court order to do it. Well, the building was gone, but the bad thing is, the property still is owned by that property owner. And we've got a property in town like this that we've been working with, and the thing is, the person is paying taxes on it. So do we as a city really want to use taxpayer money to drop somebody else's building down? So it puts a real dilemma in everybody's man. We want to have the buildings looking good. We want the shabby buildings that are dilapidated taken down, but we're almost at a standstill. And so I just really wanted to bring it up because it's everybody's thought and concern. And it's, you almost can't even go to court without us being punished for bringing it forward. So I just wanted you all know that we are concerned as much as you are, and sometimes our hands are just plain tied.
Thank you. Last question. After having discussed everything that's been brought up tonight, one final two-part question, and this will start with Mr. Jacobson. What is the main thing you need to learn to be a good mayor, and what is your top priority as a mayor?
All right, the biggest thing that I'm going to have to learn as mayor is the bureaucracy of it all. Things take time. I'm a military person where, hey, this needs to be done. We did it. This needs to be done. We did it to be done. Okay, let's put it in subcommittee so that we can discuss whether we're going to put it on committee, whether we're going to move it up to common council. Okay, that's going to be a tough one for me because that's just not the way to do business, but that is the government way. My top priority is when I get into office would be to evaluate every project, position, policy, to see that it's effective, viable, and financially responsible. So those are that is my priority. I'd also like to say thank you to the library staff for giving the citizens the opportunity like this tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Hebel. No, Mrs. Reese. Reese will go next. You come at the end. You come at the end.
Diane, you have to be more assertive and raise your hand.
Yes, I know it. My notes are scattered.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. To answering to be a good mayor, I guess what I've learned a lot is the answer to both of these part one and part two is, of those questions is communication. Patience, and going back to the old Boy Scout oath and the Boy Scout law. You do that, you've got it locked in. Listeners are always important in what is needed at any conversation, whether it's at our window or out on the street or in the grocery store. You know, you need to listen. Sometimes what you interpret is not what was really meant by the speaker, so sometimes you need to dig a little bit, ask a little questions, and get the accurate understanding to communicate. So sometimes when it's down in black and white, it's better, always. So keep the communications open and flowing with the council, department heads, and the citizens in order to work together.
Thank you. Mr. Hebel.
Simply to answer both of them, just be accessible and responsive to the citizens and business needs. And probably not wear my watch with a heart rate monitor at meetings.
Okay.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Thank you so much. And now there'll be an opportunity for you to mingle and talk to the candidates if you'd like to.
Don't attack.
Mine are a mess here, but you can.
No, the one that they didn't want to answer.
I never saw that. Those were single individual questions. And so I didn't get to see those.
Thank you guys, you did great. You did great.
Super, nice job. Thank you for rescuing me. I got so screwed up trying to figure out.
You know,
Give him credit.
I know.